when the news came of Kenny's death, it really just took its toll on a lot of us.
The fifth New York taxi driver to kill himself in the past 5 months.
It's really hard to muster the words to describe the equal level of sorrow and rage. It's just like, how many, how many more suicides are we supposed to see? You just saw these grown men, drivers, just standing there weeping. And at the same time, there is this, felt like a real resolve at the end of this vigil for everybody to just be like, enough is enough. There needs to be a real urgency in this city responding to a very obvious crisis. I'm Mayor Desai. I'm the executive director of the New York Taxi Workers Alliance. The Taxi Workers Alliance is an organization of over 21,000 members. We're a driver-funded organization. We represent the interests of all the drivers across this industry. I've been organizing since 1996. I was 23 when I started, and many of the drivers are folks that I've known for almost half my life at this point. New York City has the largest taxi and for hire industry in the entire country. Drivers collectively serve over 1 million people, and the industry is divided into the yellow cab, the most famous one, Uber and Lyft, which are part of the black car sector, corporate black cars, which serve corporate clients like Goldman Sachs, neighborhood liveries, also called car services, and then what we have called green cabs. Over 90% of drivers are immigrant, and collectively they speak over 100 different languages. We're trying to settle some roots in this country and earn a decent living from a hard day's work. There are several categories of drivers in the yellow cab industry. You could lease from a traditional garage like you would have seen in that show Taxi years ago, or you could be a medallion owner yourself. The medallion is the number you see on top of the cab. It's the main capital in this industry. In 1970, the medallion was valued at about $30,000. In 2013, it was valued at $1 million. In 2018, the same medallion is now valued anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000. So the hope you would have had to sell your medallion, and for most owner drivers, it's their piece of retirement. That hope is what's now gone, and it's become harder and harder for older drivers to imagine ever retiring. So up until 2013, the New York City taxi and for hire vehicle industry still served about 1 million passengers every single day. Then what started to happen after 2013, companies like Uber and Lyft came into town. In 2018 today, Uber has 70,000 affiliated vehicles, Uber alone. Meanwhile, there are 13,650 yellow cabs. The entire for hire vehicle sector, altogether in New York City, we now have over 130,000 vehicles all competing for the same set of fares. So how do you compete? It's impossible. It's a chokehold on the streets, and that's why yellow cabs are having such a hard time. There are just stories of, a deepening poverty, a fatigue, bankruptcies, foreclosures, evictions. We'd see our members just parked outside, sleeping in their cars for, the long periods of time. And we realized that many of them were facing homelessness. Stories of, people working like 14, 16-hour shifts. In fact, by April 2017, the Taxi and Limousine Commission had a public hearing. I myself testified to receiving phone calls from drivers who were, feeling suicidal. The most public one was by Douglas Shifter, a corporate black car driver. Douglas shot himself outside of City Hall on February 5th, and he left a really long note on Facebook. I mean, it's probably the most damning essay you're gonna read about the gig economy and just, the human cost of allowing businesses to just operate unfettered. The really poetic way that Douglas wrote about what driving meant to him, right? And the pride that he took in driving. That's actually how most drivers talk about their job. There's a pride. They know they are the ambassadors of this great city. And so there's a lot of joy, that you would hear from drivers about the actual job that they perform, the service that they give to the public. The anger comes from the conditions. Uber and Lyft in 2016 spent more on lobbyists than Amazon, Walmart, and Microsoft combined in that same year. These companies are buying their way to monopolization at the expense of everybody else. I hate to even say this out loud, but it feels like city officials from the mayor down and his regulatory agency, they're afraid to take on these companies that spent $10 million in attack ads against them just 3 years ago. And since then, these companies' wealth has gotten, a lot greater. It's too bad. You can take a negative campaign for the moment, but it's absolutely morally bankrupt for you to expect workers to continue to suffer for years on end. They have to step up and do the right thing. How can you allow these companies to just remain unregulated for so long? In our campaign, we've been calling for policies that would protect full-time work for drivers in this industry, to pass comprehensive labor standards in this Uber, Lyft new app market. We need a cap on the number of vehicles. 130,000 cars competing for the same set of fares is just not sustainable. Nobody wins. I don't like to go there and imagine what would happen if things don't change because, I'm an old school organizer. I still think people have power and we have power over corporate America. We may not be in power as workers, but when we organize, we unleash our power. We're not sitting around waiting for the elected officials to show us courage and vision. We need the workers to rise up and do that for ourselves. Only then the elected officials will actually follow.